I was looking into the origins of this and how they found it. It's interesting, this whole line of medications that are now out, Ozempic, Saxenda, Manjaro, Zepbound, Wegovy, they interestingly come from the saliva from a Gila monster, Gila monster. It's a lizard.
What's your percent of success? What's so far? I know 7 years been doing this. What are your sort of ballpark success? What do you think?
So when you look at I would have brought my data with me and we could have done it, but when you look at like this employee wellness cohort, because I think that's the safest way to 75 people I didn't know, and now 100 and almost 200 people I didn't know, right? They didn't pick me, they just got thrown at me. And if you look at those people, the average weight loss at a year was 15%. At 2 years, I suspect it drops to, to like 12. And we haven't calculated that data yet, but it's coming in. And I said it's probably going to be between 12 and 15%. So I think we could keep weight off for 2 years. But that's when the struggles hit over the long term, one family, they lost their house. Another one, the daughter moved back in and she's a cook. And, another one that had a death in the family. So like, you have to account for these things, So I think we'll probably at 2 years be somewhere, definitely double digits, weight loss maintained off, 10 to 15, it'll be like 13 or 14%, I'd imagine. And our attrition rate is surprisingly low, in this voluntary program where they don't have to pay the employees, they don't have to pay, the employer pays us. Less than 15% leave, and a lot of those are because they left the company. So, but we are highly selective, right? So they have to be ready to change. They have to have severe metabolic disease. We're screening them up front. So it's not, I don't know. I don't know if it's generalizable. We are, if somebody calls us and says, I want to lose 10 pounds for my wedding next week, like they're not coming in, This is a long-term program, that your employer pays for, and you have to be a steward of that, and we have to be a steward of their resources. So we're trying to make sure people are serious. So yeah, very low attrition rate, but we are so selective, they have to do stuff. They have to want to be there. Yeah, and why, so that's not fair, like Ozempic, you can give it to anybody,
It's easy prescription, right?
Yeah, so I think, if you have somebody who's not ready to change, they're truly not ready to change, they're going through intense stress, their father's dying, I don't know, something like that, right? And they're not going to be able, they're going to be like, maybe that's the person that these drugs are for, right? But the problem is I don't think most doctors know how to even, so we even published our results tapering GLP-1 drugs. So you'll see in this paper that we published, we tapered on a cohort of patients GLP and how we performed. I won't give away the results, but you'll see it in our paper. So we walked through the tapering and our weight loss results, and I'm sure you can imagine if it was bad, I'm not sure I would be looking to publish it, but the other groups have shown that you can maintain weight off while tapering these drugs. There was a cohort in patients who exercised, were given exercise regimen. They were able to taper without weight regain. And then Virta Health, which is a virtual low carb intervention, they were also able to show tapering GLPs without weight regain. And if you looked at the original STEP trials, they all had weight regain in the group that's discontinued the medication.
That's awesome.
Sorry,
I'm going to pull
I talk a lot.
No, I'm going to pull that paper. I think that's great. Is it published yet, or is it pending?
We just submitted, so
okay.
It's in the editor's hands now.
Okay, I would love to read that.
Yeah.
What you're talking about, Dr. Tro, is really flies in the face, as you mentioned at the beginning, of really everything we learned in med school, the whole calorie model of obesity. Could you talk a little bit about that and why we keep harping on cut the calories, get to the gym, and and of course, exercise is important. We all know that, but this is what you're talking about is quite a bit different than the convention.
So the calories model, the energy balance model, it's a tautology. It doesn't quite make sense. So like, let me give you an example, right, on how it's very hard to, there's this idea, which is probably true, which is if you eat less, you'll lose weight, right? Okay. And the idea is that you create a caloric deficit. Okay. You're creating a deficit, and that's the cause of weight loss, right? You ingest a certain amount of carbon, okay, and you eventually break it down, you pee out the H2O, and you breathe out the carbon dioxide, right? Those carbons went somewhere, and you released heat, and this is how energy happens. But I don't think it's exactly how we're taught. And I'll give you just a quick example, right? Metformin causes you to lose weight, a very modest weight reduction, a couple pounds, causes weight reduction. Do you know how it does that?
I think it affects what liver. It decreases what liver gluconeogenesis, I think.
Oh, that's all the bullshit, right? That's the bullshit. So we didn't know until this year, and the GI doc will immediately know, right? What does every patient with takes metformin tell you?
You have diarrhea?
Diarrhea. It causes, so they labeled glucose and gave it to patients with metformin. And glucose was excreted in the jejunum and the ileum, particularly the terminal ileum. It causes glucose. It makes you shit out glucose. It literally makes you shit out glucose. I don't know if that's the primary mechanism, but it's something we learned in the past 4 years. Okay. So how does that affect calories? You're losing calories in the shit, right? When you're ketotic, you lose ketones in the urine. You breathe it out. Your mitochondria uncouple. They get less efficient. When you ingest protein, some of it is, a big portion of it is converted to heat. So the problem with the caloric model is we're looking at something, we're trying to look at something linearly, and it's very complicated, right? And I gave a quick calculation with Matt Walsh on Twitter. We're going back and forth arguing on how you can actually eat more calories and lose weight. And this was recently shown in 2021. David Ludwig showed that if you maintain your calories, your carbohydrates low, calorie controlled, and weight controlled, that you will spontaneously burn 200 more calories in a day. Don't know where that goes. We know with increasing protein that you lose energy to heat, right? By about 20%. So I demonstrated a way calorically that you could eat 300 calories more and lose weight, right? And this is the problem with calories, and that's just a rough guesstimation. So, and if you look at, who does this model really, well, didn't have an impact. We've known about calories for years. And if you look at, calories at the point of purchase, calories on menus, calories on the back of labels, none of this affects eating behavior. In fact, in unrestrained eaters, it may cause more eating, to be honest with you. Some of the studies showed that. So it doesn't impact human behavior in any way. It is a real world failure, meaning that this information is nearly ubiquitous and there's no end in sight to the obesity epidemic. So I think it's just it was a good idea. It was a good try, but it didn't work. Right. So, and it's not as linear as we make it out to be. And to be honest, who benefits? It shifts the blame also to the patient. if you can't regulate this addictive calories, the problem's on you, right? And that's not exactly true, right? Like and there was a picture that I showed at a recent lecture I did of me and my wife. We both changed our diets about 10 years ago. I lost 150 pounds. She lost 20 pounds. So we're at the opposite ends of the spectrum on how an addictive food environment affects our biology, right? She lost 20 pounds. I lost 150 pounds. Her migraines went away, disappeared. Severe lifelong migraines. That's in the literature, by the way. I wouldn't have thought that. Ketogenic diet improves migraines. So the addictive food environment, it's sort of like alcohol. Not everybody has an alcohol problem. We know certain people will develop an alcohol problem, so when it comes to that calories model, it's sort of like saying, you're to blame if you have alcohol. It's not, yes, it's true. You're the only one who could be responsible for your alcohol intake, but we know it's an addictive substance in certainly some people. So I think the people who struggle the most with food, they're more likely to have food addiction, binge eating, right? Which is more than just calories. So I think as a basis for understanding obesity, the best way I could say it, it's like somebody said to you, you go to the doctor, you're like, I have a flat tire. And the doctor's like, well, you just need to pump more air in than you let out. It's true. If you pump more air in than you let out, your flat tire will be fixed. But it's not really helpful in any way. True statement. It's like, I want to build a plane, doc. Well, you need more lift than gravity. That's calories. It's a true statement that doesn't seem to help anybody. And it's a lot more complex than I think, than most people respect. And I think it's a real world failure. It's a real, if it worked, you would have hoped that with this ubiquitous sort of uptake of calorie information and calorie trackers, we have over 1 billion downloads of calorie trackers. And it's sort of like in the middle of a pandemic when I saw all the masks in the trails around my house. I wish it worked. I wish it worked to solve the problem that it was intended to, but it didn't. But it didn't. Whether, we're not doing it good enough or whether it's not a great model for, I don't know. I don't know why it didn't work, but it didn't work.
What do you think the food industry knows this enhancing the taste and enhancing the binge eating? What's your thoughts on the sodas and fast food that they know the craving of the humans and they just keep it's everywhere. I mean, you go down the street, there's nothing but fast food. And I see a lot of my employees, my patients, they just cannot stop, going there.
Well, you know who else knew? You said you're from Tehran, right? So Iran. So when my grandmother was from the same area, it was probably where your grandmother was from. Okay, they take cracked wheat. They take wheat, right, and then they put they put butter in it, right, and they know how to make it amazing. I would never eat cracked wheat, but you put butter and cracked wheat together, and I would eat a lot of it. It would make rice pilaf, right? I won't eat it, but they put butter in it. It tastes amazing, right? They take phyllo dough, and they put rose water and sugar, right? And all of a sudden, we're eating pachlava, right? So our grandmothers knew how to make food better, right? There's a dish that comes from the Iranian border of Armenia. It's called ketozov kebab. It's literally they take the ground meat and they soak it in the cherries during cherry season, right? And it's like kebabs soaked in cherries, right? And it's amazing. It's an amazing dish, right? It's an amazing dish. And what do they do with the raw meat? They mix it with bulgur, fatty meat. They mix it with bulgur. I don't know. Do you guys do kebesini or what? I don't know what do you guys call it? You know, the they mix the fat and the carbohydrate, which is the ultimate reward for the brain. The brain will take rice, it'll take bread, but how do you eat more bread? You add butter, you add oil, and then you add sugar and salt. Sugar is uniquely addictive. Salt is a potentiator, right? And you have something amazing, right? And if you look at all the foods, pizza is probably the most addictive food. Ice cream and chocolate are second and third. Fourth is cookie cake. Fifth is chips and fries, right? They're all carb fat combinations, right? Plus or minus sweet, plus or minus salt, right? So the model is very easy, you know, it's very easy. And then flavor variation is another trick they use, where every chip is a different flavor burst. You know, some has less, some has more. So they use even more advanced tricks. But it's a pretty easy formula, you know, and our grandmothers knew it, right? So do I blame the food companies? No, I blame doctors for not explaining to patients more than calories. Right? I mean, what am I going to blame my grandma and your grandma for making food that tasted good for us?
Well, that's what
Yeah.
they eat. There was not enough food, or they
Yeah.
eat seasonally, not like in here that it be abundant 24-hour foods, you know, and excess.
Yeah. Yes. 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 I think, you know, I think the you know, sort of global commerce and profit driven major industries, you know, will exploit any avenue they have, right? If you look at the supermarket aisles, you know, even when I was a kid, there were the cereal aisle was half as long, half as many varieties. Chip aisle, same thing, right? The McDonald's menu had 4 items or 5 items. You know, now there's like it's endless. So, yes, it's not just you versus your willpower. It is you versus a team of food scientists, marketers. You know, they are going to win. This is a casino, and the house always wins, right? And you have to know that. But did the casino start with? No, I mean we gambled before there were casinos, you know. So I, you know, people ask me, do I support? Right, you know, we're working on the committee now to get ultra processed food addiction recognized, and they asked me, do I support regulation? I said no. You know, I don't. I don't support regulation. You know, I support educating. You know, talking with 2 docs. That's what I support. So then another 100 docs could hear this, you know, and they can go talk to 1,000 patients each. So I think, you know, when we talk about the companies, I think they do have a responsibility, you know, and we have companies that are sort of playing the opposite side. You know, Quest is, you know, I'm not promoting Quest. I don't have any stock in Quest, right? But they make high protein chips. You know, so if you have a chip problem, you could switch to a low carb, high protein chip. You know, they make, you know, they have low carb breads now. I mean, they taste like shit, but I mean, like if you toast them, they're not so bad, right? And ultimately, you know, meat and vegetables. You know, if that's expensive, I mean, you can really find some things on sale. There's frozen vegetables on sale, frozen berries on sale. That you can get, and you can get, you know, family pack meats that are, you know, cheapest. So it's accessible. You could batch cook, you know. So I think we have to educate. We have to be careful. You know, like there's some industries out there trying to do, you know, there's It's funny. I went to Obesity Week, the biggest conference for obesity medicine, and I'm very critical. And they were sponsored by Coca-Cola. There was a thing of Coca-Cola there, and I took a picture and I said, "This is embarrassing that I'm at Obesity Week and there's a tray of Coca-Cola here." And the one of the lead dietitians from Coca-Cola came and found me and said that why am I against them? I said, I'm not against you. I just don't think we should be having you here. He said, well, we're trying to help. We have seltzers and diet products. I said, we're trying to help. That's what they said. And she said, we can help you do research. She also said, we can help you. We can fund better research. That's what she said. So you make of that what you will. The conversation ended there. But I don't think, I think as time goes on, also and as we educate more, people will look to alternatives. Look at smoking. You have Philip Morris, you have these big companies, and with a bit of regulation and a bit of education, we were able to make some huge changes. Now it's gone to vaping, unfortunately. But that's, I think, one area of success. So maybe a combination of education and then just a bit of, maybe taxation. I don't know. I prefer the education component.
Do you support warning labels on foods like they do? I think it's in like Sri Lanka. They'll label it. It says, this product basically is sugar is addictive. Or I was in Mexico recently. Is a big stop sign. It says excessive azure, or probably mispronouncing that, but excessive sugar in the product. Anything like that as a means to educate people about the contents of that package?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, sugar is addictive. Sugar, full stop. Processed carbs are addictive. You can potentiate that signal by adding fat and salt. But sugar itself is addictive. Processed carbs in itself are addictive. And that's the real problem with it's a polysubstance. If you really want to get fancy, you'll add caffeine. Put some, they put green tea extract and coffee extract now in food. You know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. There's a reason why there's a Starbucks everywhere. Have you ever seen the amount of sugar in one of those Starbucks drinks? It's insane.
We have one in Colorado called Dutch Brothers, and our daughter brought the nutrition label back, and some of those drinks have over 1,000 calories in them, and they're just loaded. It's all sugar calories. It's absolutely incredible how much is in that just one drink, and you drink it, and it's a big drink, but still, it's I don't think folks realize there's quite that much in there.
And I think people need to understand, also coming back to that calories point, when you're looking at a drink like that, you have to realize it actually depletes all blood energy, right? So when you have high insulin in response to high sugar, right, it depletes free fatty acids, glucose, right? It brings your ketones to zero, right? So you will have a drop in total blood energy within 1.5 hours. So you are literally starving every organ of energy when you have this food. It is a very potent storage signal, right?
And then you crave more.
And then you crave more, correct. And this was shown in a big cohort of 80,000 meals over 1,000 patients, that these blood sugar fluctuations increase hunger, predict weight gain, predict food intake. And David Ludwig showed that he showed what I'm alluding to, which is that it robs your blood of energy. And this has been shown. Total body energy is decreased after high insulin, high carb. So if you want to go into a food coma and be starving, it's a great, or if you're looking to send, carbohydrates into muscle tissue, that's a great way, and fat tissue simultaneously, while lowering your IQ. It's a That part was a joke, but the rest was true, you know. but but that's the way to do it, you know, with 1,000 calorie, 300 gram of carb, 250 gram carb drink.
Do you advocate fasting in any way? I would just is there any fasting in your program, or is not at all?
Yeah, after hunger subsides, that usually takes like 2 months, you know. So you can, interestingly, you can actually get a sense of your organ utilization of ketones when your uric acid excretion normalizes. Um, so your body, it takes to make peak fat oxidation, takes about 2 weeks, a week to 2 weeks, probably 10 days. Your body to utilize ketones, it's not very well known when peak ketone utilization is, right? And so, but we have surrogates to determine that. So ketones compete for the same channel for excretion with uric acid. So when you're ketotic, the way to estimate the body's ketone utilization, which is organ usage of ketones, would be when the uric acid normalizes, probably month 2 to 3, or when the uric acid excretion decreases. So sorry for the listener if this is too geeky, but so that usually happens around month 2. That clinically coincides with, doc, I'm not hungry anymore. What's going on? You know, doc, the voices in to eat are gone. You know, I suspect the blood sugar stabilizing is a key portion of that, but then also I suspect this ketone utilization is some part of it. So we push fasting, so to speak, you know, somewhere around week 6 to 8, more than anything else. And it's just simply delay your meal. If you're not hungry, delay your meal. That's the message. Now, for me personally, in a given week, most of my practice, most of the people there more than a year are eating somewhere between 7 to 12 meals a week. You know, most people. If their exercise volume is higher, it may be closer to 14. And if the exercise volume is low, it'll be closer to 7. And that's based on their own subjective hunger signals. So we tell them to fast as they see fit, as they see comfortable. A big hunger signal comes around 3 o'clock, which is after the cortisol rise. There's a dip, and like the nadir of blood sugar during the day is somewhere between 3 and 5. So that's when most people will look to initiate a meal. I don't know if that's a social cue, a physiologic cue, or both. You know.
Do you think
Sorry,
fasting
guys.
during the day or
If
night?
I'm too geeky, I'm sorry. You know.
That's quite, that's beautiful. Do you think fasting during the day versus at night make any difference or no?
So I've looked at the Ramadan data. You know, I've looked at the Ramadan data. I've looked at the early versus late fasting data. I think the only detriment to late fasting is in the sleep disturbance. That's my personal theory. So there seems to be a signal that early eating windows are slightly better for insulin sensitivity and weight loss. So having like let's say a 8 to 12 window versus like a 2 to 6 window, or you know, we certainly know that 8 hours and 6 hours aren't too different. 6 hours and 4 hours, slight superiority to 4 hours. So 4 hours definitely better than 8 hours for weight loss. And that makes sense. The fed state is like 3 to 5 hours, right? So, you know, you're not going to eat a lot within the fed state. Like it's just rate limited. Oh man, is this like more like, if this is lay audience? So fed state, guys, is like when you eat and your stomach is like primed to keep the food in the stomach the pylorus closes so you can digest food. So that process usually takes 3 to 5 hours. Sorry, guys, if I'm going way too advanced.
Yeah, in GI physiology, at least when the people they eat too much at night and they fast during the morning, then also of course the reflux, then acid, and
Yeah,
still
that
there's
disturbs
worse.
sleep.
So
So that's
yeah,
all sleep.
yeah.
So that all plays into sleep disturbance. So here's here. Well, we'll walk that to the end. So if you fast, if you have a big meal late, then you end up eating a big meal late. When you have the big meal late, you get more reflux and you get poor quality sleep, just whether you have reflux or not, but more likely to have reflux late at night. And when you get poor quality of sleep, hormonally, you will have higher ghrelin the entire next day. You'll have higher ghrelins post meals the entire next day, and that sleep disturbance, even 1 hour sleep disturbance, spontaneously increases caloric intake up to about 200 to 300 calories. So I think the real detriment to late fasting is if it's too late and too large. So, if you're going to do like a 12 to 5 or something, make sure it's 5, or just get your big meal at 12 and make the dinner meal small. So those would be my options. But it's very hard, pragmatically speaking, socially speaking, we're anchored to dinner. So it's very difficult to tell somebody to skip. Like if I try to skip dinner, my kids and my wife are going to be like, where are you? What are you doing?
That's the social hour in America. That's exactly.
Yeah, so it's tough.
So what's your take-home message? Give us like a synopsis of what you think and what we should our audience to know. And so just give us a little summary of what's, you have a beautiful story and you have a lot of evidence. So if somebody wants to, take care of themselves, just give us some sort of conclusion or summary. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to give it in one sentence. Don't eat food that makes you eat more. That's it. Don't eat food if a food makes you eat more, avoid it. If a food makes you full for a really long time and you don't want to eat for a really long time after it, keep eating it. Keep eating that food. That's probably the best single one-line statement. And if you struggled your whole life, stop looking for a diet plan to solve your mental health and your stress response. Don't look to nutrition. Your plate cannot fix, your mindset, right? And your psychology, right? So you can't keep looking to the macro amount or calorie amount to solve serious life problems. Most serious life problems need help. You need help, right? So get help. Get help, and it's attainable. Very simple. Address your hunger, cravings, feelings of deprivation, manage your social situations, manage your emotions. Outline your problem foods, places, people, situations. Immediately recover, and you won't struggle.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I think that's a great place to sum up. And Dr. Shah, thank you so much. You've been ultra gracious with your time. We so appreciate it. Our listeners do as well. How can our listeners find you? And are you, by any chance, licensed in Colorado?
Or California?
Both. I think both. California definitely, but I'm not taking many more patients. So but our practice is taking patients. There's a team that is awesome. Dr. Laura Buchanan, Mary Duganzik, and we have 4 amazing health coaches, each who have their own health journeys, personal trainer. So yeah, they can call up or text. They can text our practice, email our practice. Just visit the website, drtro.com, spelled out, DOCTORTRO.com. We have a free app, free podcast, Low Carb MD podcast, all social. You can find me.
Wonderful.
Beautiful. We greatly appreciate your time. It's been really an honor talking to you. And if you ever come this side of Colorado or California, let's get together. We'd love to learn more from you.
Same
here. I'll be there and I'll be not too far,
Okay.
not too far in September.
I'll send my information. Give me a text. We'll get together.
Perfect.
All right. Have a wonderful night. Thanks for
Thank
staying
you.
up.